Good morning. Hope you're having a good beginning to your day. In this week's Torah portion, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, speaks to the Jewish people. And he tells them, he reminds them not to oppress the refugee, the convert, the orphan, the widow. But he reminds them not to oppress them, because he says, Ki geidim hayisim be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you yourself were refugees. And the question, of course, asked is, the Jews had just come out of Egypt. They suffered so much. They were no man's land. They had nothing. Why would the first thing Moses remind them about not oppressing others? Wouldn't that be self-explanatory? Was it that relevant then? And the answer, of course, is because we've seen throughout history that many, many times those that are oppressed oppress others. Hurt people hurt other people. Because in a certain sense, when we finally finish being hurt, we feel so much pain within us. And sometimes the way people get it out is by hurting others and paying back for, so to speak, what they got. But Moses warns the Jewish people that that is not the Jewish way. Because you were hurt shouldn't beget you to hurt someone else. But because you were hurt and you were oppressed and you know what it means to be hurt and oppressed, should compel you to be kind, to be caring, to be loving, to be nurturing to others. That's always been the Jewish way. If you think about what's happening in Turkey and the kindness that the Jewish people have shown, if you think about people that suffered so much, there's no one that has suffered more than the Jewish people. Yet we're always the first at being there to help others. Because that's what Moses taught us. That was the first thing the Jewish people were taught after being enslaved in Pharaoh's gas chambers. Don't do to others what was done to you, but learn from what was done to you to be kind, to be caring, to be loving to others. You know, last week we celebrated our oldest daughter, Mushki's birthday. Mushki made us parents. Mushki is named after a remarkable human being, our beloved Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, who was the wife of the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory. Today is her Yartzeit. Growing up in Crown Heights, I had so many encounters with the Rebbe, personal and communal, but very few sightings even of the Rebbetzin. The Rebbetzin was what we call Kvuda Bas Melech Panima. The Rebbetzin didn't like the limelight. She didn't like the attention. Yet she was the most dedicated person to others, looking after the delivery man, the handyman, the people that you came encountered with that maybe were regular people, not the leaders. You know, we're used to leaders that give rousing speeches and are able to inspire the masses, but yet sometimes when it comes to the regular person, they're not able to identify, to connect, to give comfort to. The Rebbetzin herself lost her sister in the Holocaust. The Rebbetzin and the Rebbe came on the last boat out of Europe to be saved from the Nazis and hid in France before that, literally to be saved from the Nazis. Yet all that taught the Rebbetzin to be kind, to be giving, to be caring, to dedicate her life to the mission that her and her husband had taken to help others. There's a story they say about the Rebbetzin. The Rebbe would be in his office till very late at night, especially at nights when he had private audiences. And one time the Rebbe had left his office. It was after 2 a.m. And someone called the Rebbe's secretary with an emergency, that something happened to their kid and the doctors needed emergency surgery, pleading that he wanted a blessing from the Rebbe. And the secretary told this man with all the pain that the Rebbe had just gone home after a full day And he didn't want to bother and call the Rebbe's office, but the Rebbe's home. But the man pleaded and pleaded. And finally, feeling the pain of another Jew, the secretary picked up the phone and called the Rebbe's house. And the Rebbetzin picked up, the Rebetzin's wife, Chaya Mushka, whose Yartzeit is today. And the first thing he did is he apologized profusely for disturbing the Rebbetzin at such a late hour. The Rebbetzin always waited home for the Rebbe to come, no matter what time it was. And then he asked if you could please ask for a blessing for so-and-so, this child who's having surgery tonight, that he should have a speedy recovery. And the Rebbetzin, of course, said she would convey this immediately to the Rebbe. But then she turned to the Rebbe's secretary and she said, you never have to apologize for calling to help another Jew. Our mission, my husband and I, the Rebbe and I, were brought down to this world to help other Jews. Please don't apologize for allowing us to do our lifelong mission. That was the Rebbetzin. The Rebbetzin had no children, yet she has tens of thousands of spiritual children, tens of thousands of children named after her, our Mushki being one of them, who carry her name and live her legacy, to remember always to be kind to the vulnerable, and never, if you were taken advantage of, to project that on someone else, but on the contrary, to learn from the pain you had to help another person. I'll say one more story of the Rebbetzin. The Rebbetzin had a driver who would take her to where she had to go. One time they were going somewhere, and they couldn't take their usual route because there was construction. They had to take another route. And they took the street, and they came onto a commotion, and the Rebbetzin asked the driver to find out what's happening. And the driver goes out, and he sees that there was this African-American woman who was being evicted from her apartment because she hadn't paid rent. And the Rebbetzin says to the driver, please go find out how much rent she owes. This was in the 70s or the late 60s. And the driver comes back and says it's $1,800, which was a huge sum back then. Even now it's a lot of money, but could you imagine in the 70s, it was equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars. $10,000 at least. And finally, he comes back and he says it's $1,800, and the Rebbetzin takes out her checkbook and writes a check to be paid so this woman could go back into the apartment. And the driver asked the Rebbetzin, that was a lot of money. You don't even know the woman. She's not Jewish. Why are you giving so much money? And the Rebbetzin says, nothing happens by chance. Everything is by divine providence. Why did God send us this way? We could have gone the regular way. Why did they have to be construction? It must be because he wanted us to help this person and hear this person's cry. The Rebbetzin taught us a legacy of caring, of giving, of empathy, of humility, of kindness. And let us remember what Moses told the Jewish people. Always look after the refugee and the oppressed, because that's what we were. And we can learn from our pain to help others. Have a great day.